All right, Rachel. Rachel, where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
Um, I grew up in Johnston, Rhode Island, but I spent my teen years and I graduated from Burrillville, Rhode Island. And I didn't really move around a lot, but definitely didn't like either one of them, honestly.
Tell me about your family.
So I have a mom and a dad, two sisters that are 14 and 13 years older than I am, and I have a baby sister. I do have step siblings, but those are like predominantly by blood, I guess. When I say I have my parents, I feel like a lot of people have this mindset of being grateful no matter what kind of parent they are. And that, and an understanding, I completely understand why people would think that. But it really wasn't the case, I guess. My mom was an opiate addict. My dad and her met when they were like 31 and she was perfectly fine. They lived in the same building, and my dad was an immigrant from Mexico and had no idea how to speak any English whatsoever. So my mom taught him. She had two girls of her own, and I think she was fascinated with a man who was the same age as her, honestly, because like my sister's dad was 52 when my mom gave birth to them, and she was like 19. And apparently he knew her before that age. So I feel like my mom was really, really infatuated with someone, that worked and did things. He may not have spoken English, but he still tried to be the role model that she wanted. But I feel like she was a bit blindsided with the fact that, like, the two men liked small children. I mean, what do you have in common when you're 52 with a 19-year-old? What do you have in common with a child with a different mindset besides being a fatherly figure? So I wasn't really surprised when my dad molested my sister. I was a baby. My mom had no idea. I think she was a bit tricked into, having me. Like, she really didn't know what a visa or citizenship really was. My mom took her siblings when she was like 13 and found my sister's dad and tried to make something out of nothing, So I feel terrible thinking about it. And I judged her a lot for it because after she died, I never understood why she did some of the things that she did. When she told my mom that my dad molested her, she didn't believe her, like at all. And my dad was like, "I'll take Rachel if you don't believe me." And I think at that point, like, all my life, I've tried to like stand back from the painting and like look at the whole picture because I feel a little selfish looking at the one part of them that I knew. I feel like I'd never heal that way. But like, I'm sure she looked at my dad and was like, what if this man's actually telling the truth, right? What if he's a good man and my daughter is just lying? So my sister was sent away for a very long time. Like, she was like 13 or 14 when it happened, and I never saw my sister again. Like, and if I did, it was for like 20 minutes inside of a Butler hospital. Of course, like, she could have gotten better, but she didn't. And my dad just...
She was sent where?
She was sent to like Butler Hospital,
Which is a
like a mental facility. And it was there. She was there for a while. I think till this day, can't really hold down a job. And like at one point, like, I don't blame her because no one believed her. She was molested before by her uncles. So I'm sure by time now, if you don't do that healing, you turn into like a monster. And my dad just went off and, she was out of the picture and he could handle with me. I didn't get my memories until after my son was born. So like, I spent a lot of my childhood idolizing this man. Like, I loved this man. I did everything I could to be like this man. I wanted to be everything like my parents, Even if my mom was an opiate addict, The earliest memories of her I can imagine was like, she was obviously always on pills, and she slept a lot, and she had these like giant bins. And I obviously had no idea what like Klonopins were, because she was like a fat woman. She gained so much weight when she was pregnant with me and after that, like, she couldn't move. So like she would send me to go make cocktails for her, bottles with like shapes and stuff on it, so I could help her like get through the day. And my dad didn't bat an eye at all. He was molesting me and teaching me things, gifting me them, you know, those amazing presents like a bike and toys and guitars that no one would ever play with me with. I was just to sit there. You know, my parents were born in the 60s, like 1961, both of them. So I feel like their generation, as long as you survived, you were okay. What happened in between that story, well, like, that's debatable, you know? That's really debatable. You know, you could come out with trauma and he'll never man up to it. Ever. And it haunts me because when my mom died, I feel very selfish and I've always kept it in. So this is like the first time that I'm actually really saying it. Is she was so fucking sick, man. She barely walked. I watched her have dialysis. Like my Nana went through it, and my mom was getting sick, more sick because she missed her mom, that I watched her die. I watched her have strokes. I watched her almost like the couch on fire from smoking cigarettes. If she did go out, it was hell on earth, because you can tell she was physically in pain. So when she was dying, I was hoping for it, because no person should live that way. And I was disgusted with my dad. This man who I idolized and loved, watched his partner die. Watched her crumble, and he thought nothing of it. He thought nothing of it so hard that he got married 6 months later, and we moved. Now, he says I had some kind of saying in that, but he wasn't telling me that he was meeting up with a woman that I knew from like my childhood. We used to go camping. My mom, she really didn't do much, but she really liked to go camping. And she would go with she would always meet up with other people, and this man who played the guitar, his daughter became my stepmom. And I feel like being traumatized, she was not relevant to my story until she became my stepmom. And after that, it was like a whole new hell on earth. And that's when we moved to Burrillville, because after, you know, the first 8 people that my dad molested, he needed to leave. He couldn't stay in Johnston. He molested all of my friends when they were in elementary school age. Like, and I'm over here talking to CPS like, my dad's a great guy. Like, I promise, he's never done that. Meanwhile, I had yeast infections and all those like little signs that I was abused. So like after she died, he wanted a man. I wasn't allowed to mourn. I became angry. I moved to Burrillville and hell began. The only control I could ever have was lying and stealing. And now that I'm older, of course I'm embarrassed by it. Of course I'm embarrassed by it, but I had no control. I had no control over anything, and I also didn't remember anything. I was living in a house with the person that told me he loved me, who taught me how to give a blowjob, and then also watched my mom die. And I was supposed to be okay with it. And the worst part is, I tried to connect to like my older sisters, thinking I could connect with her because I was feeling weird. And she's my oldest sister, and she was the coolest one too. Like, she had tongue piercings and tattoos. She's the reason I have a tongue piercing, and she is such a mean son of a bitch. She's so traumatized, and I vowed and promised myself that I wouldn't become her, because I have a baby sister now, and I know that if I fall into the wrong mindset, I could 100% destroy that, like how she destroyed me. She's mean. She can't sit in the same room with me for more than 10 minutes without telling me how much I look like him, telling me how much I should have, I must have enjoyed being molested because I don't visually look like I'm distraught and angry and sad. But like, you weren't there when I was, I had a child. Like that was the best moment and the worst moment of my entire life, was having my son. It was terrible and it was awesome. It's like, on one hand, I had this beautiful little boy that's so awesome, and he's like autistic and he's so smart. I feel like I, gave birth to like a Bobby Hill and Sheldon, and he's so awesome. And on the other hand, I feel like life watched me get so excited that like picked me up. They put me on a table and they spread me like a little frog, and they took out every one of my little organs and said, you see this? This is all the trauma you get to unpack. You make sure it goes back in safely, soundly, and you can like survive after this. And I had no idea that I was going to remember. I wasn't able to connect with my kid. It was so hard. I had bad postpartum. I felt like a failure of a mom because every time I tried to breastfeed or be close, it felt so terrible. And I felt guilty. I didn't know what to do when he cried. I wasn't made to be a mom. I didn't know how to care. I loved him. I wanted him, but like, I was so stunted in my trauma that I had to really unpack it. Really unpack it.
Who is the father?
He was someone I dated in high school. We're not meant to be. We were meant to be parents to Scott. We coexist nicely, but it's been a path getting there. Obviously, he gave me the best part of him, and I'm thankful for the role he plays in being a good dad, because like him and his stepdad help me make a child that will never even question what kind of life that I even had. I wouldn't imagine ever hurting my child in a million years. Never mind like that. And that also brings me to my sister, who like, they also think I'm the cool aunt. I have a niece and nephew that are like 18 and 19. Like they deal with a mom that's really unhealed, and she yells at them, brings them back for like 5 seconds with love, dishes them out with more violence and more angry and more names about their dad who died. And it's like it never stops. The cycle never ends, and it's because every time I go back to it, I think of him. I did as far as even talking to every single one of his victims after I gave birth. I literally messaged all 8 of my friends that were at the ages of like 8 to 12 that all had to deal with him, the descriptions of what he looked like, the strategies he used to wrestle with them and treat them like their daughter, and buy things for them, and that man doesn't even bat an eye on it.
Did the victims respond?
I mean, a lot of them did, actually. Yeah, a lot of them told me the stories. A lot of them, they gave me full descriptions. I obviously apologized. And recently I went to a St. Patrick's Day party, and one of their moms was there. And when we were little, she stopped us from like talking after that happened, because she was one of those parents that actually believed it. And I like sat down, and she at first didn't remember me, and I was like, I want to apologize to you. And she was like, why are you apologizing to me? And I was like, I wish I could have helped in like some way. I wish I wasn't your daughter's friend, I wish I could have done something so that maybe my sister could have not had that experience, so my friends didn't have to say that their first time having sex was my father. That's pathetic. And it's even more ironic because the family that he has now that doesn't believe me, it's just a wild thought. Like, what makes you think that I enjoy admitting that? I don't know anyone that would enjoy admitting that. Like, that's just a very strange thing to just engulf in. And even now, like, he would make up some weird story about how I'm delusional, or how, Mija, you'll come back around. I'm not gonna come back around. You can't forget what happens My sister can't forget what happens. Everyone just forget what happens. And then because you forget, you end up turning into a monster that goes right back into the same pattern again and again and again until you burn every bridge you ever have. I grew up alone. The internet raised me, early 2000s, and I raised me. My mom slept, my dad molested me, and I raised myself. He was never home. Wasn't a good dad. And she deserved better. And even though I hate my sister, I feel so bad. Sometimes I wish I wasn't born. Then maybe my mom would have had a change of heart, would have that moment of relief, trusted her gut maybe. Instead of falling back into the same pattern, she could have trusted her own gut and just said, no, I don't really like you like that. And now I can't even stand in the same room as her. And it sucks. I have this one rule about my son, is I don't post his face online at all. And a lot of people assume it's because I either don't want to show him, or obviously the dangers of people seeing him. I guess a little bit it has to do with that, but it's mostly because of his consent. In society, they talk about, women need to give consent. Just people in general. Consent is very important. And I obviously didn't have much of it in my favor when I was little. So I need him to know the dangers of the internet. Whether he chooses to put his image out there, that is 100% up to him. He has that freedom as a person. But I need him to first understand it as an individual. Because if I don't demonstrate that respect for him, how am I going to expect that for him to do it to other people? How am I going to expect that same boy that I want to raise and be proud of to demonstrate the same thing unless I do it for him and show him that kind ladder? And I don't know. It's not that hard. But yet I still watch my sister suffer. I watch her deteriorate. I lost contact with my nephew and niece because I said some choice words to her. She posted his face online to spite me. I did everything in my power to go through Facebook to prove that he was my son and prove that I don't post him. Eventually I got it down, but that led to her explaining to me on Facebook and all of my Facebook friends, because I'm a tattoo artist, that I must have enjoyed my dad molesting me and how much of a failure I am and I will never be nothing. The same story of an unhealed child. And no matter what, I can't hate her. I won't do it. Because I forced myself to look at that whole picture. That whole fucking picture. Same with my dad. I can't hate any of them because why am I going to hinder my own growth for these people to take advantage of more of my time, more of my effort? I can't. As much as I love my family, it's not fair to myself. I spent my whole life wondering why my mom abandoned me 18 years ago. Why did my dad choose another woman? Because you spent all that time grooming me to be your mini wife. I had to unravel my own self in that with my own relationships, right? I had to watch my small child deal with the worst of me. I finally met a good person and married him, and sometimes I don't even feel like I deserve what I am now. I want to torture myself. I want to destroy everything I have. It takes an actual effort to give a shit. And no matter how many times I've had that conversation with my sisters, or even when I tried to confront my dad about it, because I did. I 100% confronted that man for him to For him to halfway tell me that you don't understand, your sister was more the problem. She was like 13. You're a grown man. What do you mean? And then quickly took it away and stopped talking to me. You live your comfortable life in Virginia, being the medicine man you are, and all those people think you're awesome. And then there's victims out here. That's why you're not allowed in Rhode Island. There's victims out here that you're forgetting about, and you don't care. It's I don't know. I've never said the story out loud because I feel like every time I do, people seem to make it my fault. And then when Donna talks to me, then it really feels like my fault. But all I want is for Ruben to go away. That's literally all I want. I want him to go away so fucking bad. And I miss my nephew. I miss my sisters that never really got to exist because they'll be stuck in trauma for the rest of their life. I miss the part of me that had a childhood. The best part is that when Scott one day sees this, he will never know what I felt like. I'll never know what it feels like to be in a house so dirty. And there's maggots in your macaroni. And you're really trying your best to just eat. And your mom's on a bench and your dad's nowhere to be found. And that's all I honestly want. And I thought, like, maybe being a tattoo artist, like, I could take my sisters with me. And I realized that I can't heal for them. And that makes me even more angry because I would love to carry the load. I would 100% eat Donna's trauma if it meant her just moving on and being a happier, healthier person. If maybe she could actually see me and not see him. Because, like, I understand that. And I hate it. Like, I hate it. I look just like him. Like, I joke with my husband all the time. Like, if we got DNA tests, like, fingers crossed I'm not Mexican. Like, it's a glimmer of hope. And I joke because, like, I'm like, I don't want to look like him. When jokes around and call me Mija, I could cringe in my skin every time. So, like, I totally get why she hates me. But God, it's not fair that all these people had to suffer. And you get to sit there in your really nice, place in your house in Virginia, being important in your native life, while your daughter thinks I'm a liar. That's, like, the best part, and probably what hurts the most, is that my baby sister thinks I'm just a straight up liar. Like, granted, I was a terrible teenager. I'll be 100% honest. I was a garbage teenager. I didn't know how to deal with trauma. I didn't know what I was thinking. I wanted love so badly from a place that didn't exist, which was myself. I was so preoccupied in destroying what was around me because I didn't know how to process it, that, like, I forgot about myself. I thought I wasn't worth living for. So, like, I get it. But, like, to tell the truth, you're a grown man now. It's a damn shame. And I'm sure a lot of those people, they don't really think about it, but I carry it. I think about it all the time. I think about the people that go through their daily life, and that's in the back of their mind. Or, like, when they find a new partner and they ask about the times that they've had sex, like normal couples, and then that's like a fucking wrench in their whole story. Because how are you going to unpack that? How are you ever going to unpack that? I feel responsible for it. And it's a shame. Because all I want is to just raise my son and be a better person than me. You know, not have to do all this searching and hunting. You know, not have to find people that actually care to listen, you know? And not have to go through the remedial trials of like, maybe this person will still love me even though I fear that they're gonna leave me. After she died, it brought me to my genuine religion, and I'll like, even though it was so horrible, at least, you know, I'll thank myself that I found myself there. And like, I like being an honest. I like having no boundaries when it comes to God's, you know? And who am I to tell you God isn't real? I have peace in knowing that, like, maybe it's not God. I grew up very Catholic. So, like, to me, God is whatever you want it to be. Whether it's yourself or anything. As I got older, I once a year, I do like microdose on mushrooms. Because I've been to therapy, I've talked it out. I love it, I love crying. I even tattooed sensitive on myself to remind myself that I am still a little bitch. Being a tattoo artist didn't make me tough. It just makes me cry even more. And like, I don't know. I love it. I'll grind it up. It'll be, obviously when we're alone, I usually have my dogs, and it's the one time where I could kind of like dig out my own trauma and not be so afraid of it. I used to be so afraid to just admit to myself of this and like actually expose it and let people know, like, listen, you're not alone. I totally get it, you know? I understand what it was like to be groomed by your own parent and then search for that love that wasn't actually stable. And then be ignored. That's probably the worst part. The people that ignored me and exiled me, like my stepmother, who also grew up abused as well. My step-siblings. I only found out that they stopped talking to me because my husband went to play pool, and we went to this like local bar, and I walked in and I could see my brother in like the distance, and I like shoved my husband and I was like, that's my brother. And I'm like, because I've never had a brother, I only had my stepbrother, and you know, he was so nice and I could see his face change and he was very distraught, and I was like, what's wrong? He goes, I have to tell you, I mean, they told me I don't have to, but I just want to let you know that you really can't come to my wedding. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, no, I get you. And he's like, when you made those accusations, they don't want trouble and they don't want you there because obviously they've, you know, I mean, I'm not anything to do with it. And I was like, no, listen, it's not my day. You have to understand that. I would never interrupt your day. It's not about me. It's about you. I'm not going to go there. You have nothing to worry about. It's the idea that now everyone thinks I'm this monster. What made you not believe me? What made you not believe the other 8 to 10 people? Why are you believing this person? It's beyond me. It's beyond me. Oh, now that I'm older, I feel like it's gotten a little easier to just, I don't know, see my parents as the people they are versus being my parents. Because I feel like if I see them as my parents, I can feel the hate grow, and that's not what I want to harvest, obviously. But like even my dad, like looking at it, now I'm like seeing a bigger picture, because what traumatized you as a child to do this? There's like this documentary I saw on like Amazon, and I can't remember it, but it was about this like fellow who had like a house down south, and his job was to like give therapy to these like child molesters or predators. And like as for someone who has been there, I completely understand why people want to absolutely just X them out of life. But that's not going to actually just stop people from that happening to, you can't really do that. You got to really get to that core. And I kind of admired it and also sat there a little bit. And I would never, ever take the troubles that this man has caused from him. But it kind of let me wash my hands of it and almost say, like, listen, whatever your God is, you will 100% deal with that. But I hope you find some kind of reasoning as to why you're like this. Whoever hurt you in life, I am sorry for that little version of you, but that doesn't excuse who you are now. And the same, I feel like, goes for everyone. It goes for my sisters, it goes for my dad, it goes for my stepmom who'd allowed it, and it goes for everyone in between. You can't hold yourself back from the traumas that you've had. But who you are and how you treat people after is 100% your responsibility. It is your responsibility to make sure you heal so you don't bleed on those people. I can't expect Scott to raise me. I can't expect him to go through the same things that I did just because of what? Of sake of argument? I think that's not fair. Your job is to be a better person. So at the end of the day, you are someone you could be proud of, your children, or, you know, even your dog, because I want my dog to be proud of me, not gonna lie. But, like, it's not hard. I mean, it's hard, and it definitely sucks. But I mean, isn't that what you have 100 years for? Why do you want to be stunted in one place? Why? Why do you want to walk around and wake up one day and you're 55 and, you know, you're still living in a remedial little apartment that you've had that you're not happy with, in a town that you hate, with around the people that you hate, married to the person that you hate, with, you know, the kind of animals that you don't like. Like, there are so many people living such unhappy lives. It's like, when's it your turn to actually be happy? Can you take the time to actually, you know, care about yourself? And I mean, I guess that is a lot to ask, but I got 100 years, so why not start, you know? I guess this is my way of starting. Because after this, I hope he sees it. Oh, I do. I hope he sees it. I hope my stepmom sees it. I hope the victims see it. I did tell one of them about this interview. And she actually married me. She's a good one. And she actually, like, lost her virginity to my dad. So this was really important to her and for us. And even though I hate my sister, it's for her too. It's for that little version of her that I want to hug so fucking hard and say sorry. And it's for me who, you know, just wanted her girlhood back. So I feel like it stops really being about, you know, the story and more about, you know, people and how they feel and how they actually, you know, progress in life. I want everyone to actually feel better about this, you know, except him. You don't get to feel better about this. I don't think so, sir. So if you do see it, good. Good.
Thank you, Rachael.
Thank you.